So we've talked about the various elements that are contained within the soundtrack, and just as a refresher, those main elements are your dialogue elements, your music elements, and your effects elements, and of course all the subcategories within each of those main categories. Those together we call the D, M, and E, and those are going to be the splits or the stems that we output. Now I want to take a look at an example in a Pro Tools timeline. I do want to make a side note, and that is that every project is different. Each project is going to have its own specific audio needs, depending on what was recorded on location. We might need to recreate sounds, but also on top of that, the filmmaker, the producer, the director, they're going to have a vision for what the audio soundscape should be. And every film is different. One film you might have the director wanting every moment to be recreated sound-wise, and you might have another project where emotionally the director really only wants music to be played through. And so this is where the spotting session is key. So on this particular project, after I did the spotting session, I learned a couple of key things about the audio for this project. First of all, this was shot on film. That's not typical today, of course, because today typically everything is digital, but this was shot on 16mm film. And due to the nature of recording film, you'll see up at the top is the track that was provided by the picture editor. And as you can see, there are whole stretches of silence within this guide track. And so that means that all of these sounds were going to have to be recreated for this particular show. So first of all, I knew that I was going to have to recreate a whole lot of sounds, and the director wanted them to be realistic sounds. This is a thriller drama, not a science fiction movie, not a horror movie, and so he was looking for a realistic depiction of the audio. But there were a couple other key moments. This filmmaker, God bless him, finds sound to be a really key component in his storytelling. And so the story nominally is about a woman who's moved into the city, and so the city needed to be a character unto itself. So what we decided to do with the sound of the city was to use the sounds of the city to mimic the emotional qualities that the character was going through. She was in a contemplative mood. The city sounded contemplative. If she was in a kind of a crazy mood, the city would be crazy. And we used those sounds of the city to reflect her emotional states. It was a sort of an ever-evolving use of the design of the city. One of the other things that was key here was that there was a character in the movie who was never recorded on set, and that is this dog here. And the dog is actually a major character, and so we had to create all of the sound elements for this dog. So what we did was we did a long series of wild recordings. You'll see that the dog is on a wood floor. So we recreated that, and we put the dog in a wood floor environment. And we had the dog bark, growl, whimper, and so on. And we then took those raw recordings and we rebuilt them into a library of sounds of the dog. So we would have our whimper sounds. We would have our bark sounds. We also trimmed out each of the individual paw hits on the wooden floor so that we could create sort of a dog Foley. And here you'll see that I've created these two tracks, a dog dialogue track and a dog pause track. And so I used that library of sounds that we created so that I made sure to send the dog dialogue to our dialogue stems. We sent our dog pause to our effects stems. And all of those elements, the sounds of the city, the sounds of the dog, were used to enhance the emotional qualities of the scenes, the tension in the scenes. We also were able to set the place by creating these sounds of the city, and then we used the sounds of the city with the dog sounds to pace the scenes after the picture edit. So this is a key part of our sound design. So now we're going to move on and look at how we specifically layered each of these elements to create these emotional qualities.